The floodwaters surged dangerously, rising steadily with the unrelenting force of nature. Anna crouched beside the entrance of the tunnel, her eyes scanning the murky depths below. There was something unmistakably wrong about the scene before her. The once calm, narrow passage now seemed like a watery grave, with dark, rushing water flowing through. In the distance, faint, desperate cries echoed from within the tunnel, loud enough to send a chill down her spine, yet too faint to confirm. She could barely make out the form of someone struggling against the tide. Her heart raced as she realized what it was. A puppy. It was trapped in the flooded tunnel, helpless. Anna didn't hesitate. She knew she had to act quickly or risk losing it forever. Without a second thought, she grabbed a rope, her pulse quickening. She wasn't sure how she would do it, but she couldn't leave it there. Not like this. As Anna ventured deeper into the tunnel, the water level continued to rise, forcing her to keep moving despite the chilling cold. The faint cries of the puppy became clearer now. Each one was filled with fear and desperation. Anna's breath came in shallow gasps, and the tension in her chest grew. She needed to act fast. Every second counted, and she knew she couldn't waste time. The tunnel walls pressed closer as she waded deeper, the murky water sloshing around her, making her footing slippery and unsteady. She cursed under her breath. The tunnel was getting narrower, the air heavier, but she didn't stop. The puppy's cries guided her, fueling her resolve. Anna's mind raced, calculating each movement, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't fail now, not when there was a life depending on her. The puppy's cries grew louder, more desperate, as Anna reached the source of the sound. The water had now risen to her waist, and she was struggling to stay upright. She gripped the edge of a jagged rock, using it to steady herself as the current pushed against her. The puppy was visible now, trapped against a pile of debris, its tiny body shivering in the cold water. It was exhausted, its fur clinging to its body, eyes wide with fear. Anna's heart broke at the sight, but she knew she couldn't waste time. The water was rising too quickly. She reached out her hand towards the puppy, her voice calm but firm as she coaxed it towards her. "Come on, little one. I've got you. Just a little longer," she whispered, hoping the puppy could hear her above the rushing water. Anna's hand closed around the puppy, her fingers trembling as she pulled it from the debris. The small creature was cold, shivering violently, but it was alive. For a moment, Anna just held it close to her chest, breathing a sigh of relief. The tunnel felt darker now, the water even colder. She didn't have much time. With one arm wrapped around the puppy, she reached for the rope she had secured earlier, tying it securely around herself. The tunnel was narrow, and the water was rising too quickly. Anna could feel the pressure mounting, and she knew she couldn't risk waiting any longer. She had to get out now. Anna moved quickly, her mind racing as she retraced her steps through the flooded tunnel. The water seemed to pull at her with every step, but she couldn't afford to slow down. The puppy was nestled tightly against her chest, its tiny body trembling from the cold, but Anna kept moving. Her heart pounded as she reached the point where the tunnel began to narrow even more, and she realized the water had risen far beyond what she had expected. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed it aside. She had to stay calm, for the puppy's sake. One wrong move could cost them both. The tunnel ahead seemed endless, but Anna pressed on, every step a battle against the water. Anna's feet sank deeper into the water as she pushed forward, the current growing stronger with every step. The tunnel felt like a never-ending maze, its walls narrowing, and the air growing staller with each breath she took. The faint cries of the puppy grew louder, more desperate, spurring her onward. The water reached her waist now, and it was difficult to maintain her balance as the current tugged at her. She gripped the tunnel's jagged edges for support, her fingers aching from the cold. Her body was shaking from both fear and exhaustion, but she forced herself to continue, knowing the puppy needed her. Every second mattered now. The floodwaters were rising, inch by inch, and she had no idea how much longer the tunnel would hold. Yet, she couldn't stop. Not now, not when the puppy was so close. She steeled herself, pushing forward against the pull of the water. Anna's progress slowed as she encountered more obstacles, large chunks of debris and sharp rocks, floating with the current. The tunnel, once a narrow passage, had turned into an obstacle course. Anna had to navigate carefully, avoiding sharp objects while keeping her eyes focused on the puppy's faint cries. The water rose faster than she anticipated, and the path forward became increasingly treacherous. She felt the pull of the current becoming stronger, dragging at her legs, and for a moment, she wondered if she might be swept away. But the cries of the puppy cut through her fear, reminding her of the reason she had come. With a surge of willpower, Anna forged ahead. Every step forward was a battle against the elements, but her resolve hardened. She couldn't stop now, not when she was so close. The tunnel began to narrow, and the walls pressed in on her. Anna's breath was quick and shallow as the air grew heavy, and her arms burned from the effort of swimming through the rising water. She had reached a point where it felt like she was swimming rather than walking. The current was relentless now, pushing her backwards as she fought to keep moving forward. The cries of the puppy echoed in her ears, urging her on. She had to keep going. But her limbs were growing heavy, and the weight of the water made every movement feel like a monumental effort. For a moment, she paused, taking in a shaky breath. The tunnel stretched out in front of her, dark and foreboding. The water was higher now, up to her chest. She could feel her energy waning, but the thought of the helpless puppy drove her forward, pushing aside the exhaustion that threatened to overtake her. Anna's foot slipped on a wet rock, and for a terrifying moment she lost her balance. The water rushed up to her neck, and she felt herself being pulled under by the force of the current. Panic surged through her, but she fought it back, grabbing onto a nearby rock to steady herself. She gasped for air, her heart pounding. She couldn't afford to let fear take over. Not now. Not when the puppy was so close. With trembling hands, Anna pushed herself upright, her body shaking from the cold and the fear that threatened to consume her. She reached for the rope tied around her waist, its length still secure, and with a deep breath, began to move forward again. The tunnel was closing in on her, the water rising rapidly, but Anna wouldn't give up. She couldn't. There was no turning back. Anna moved forward with renewed urgency. The puppy's cries were now so close she could almost touch them. She knew she was running out of time. The water level was dangerously high, and the current had become a constant force against her. Every step felt like a battle, but the thought of the puppy kept her going. Finally, she rounded a corner and saw it, there, trapped against a pile of rocks, its small body barely visible in the swirling water. The puppy was weak, barely keeping its head above the surface. Anna's heart clenched, and without a second thought, she lunged forward, reaching out to pull the tiny creature from the floodwaters. But just as her fingers brushed its fur, the water surged again, threatening to drag them both back into the tunnel. She couldn't let that happen. With every ounce of strength she had left, Anna grabbed the puppy and began pulling it toward safety. Anna finally reached the puppy, its tiny form barely visible amidst the swirling debris. The water had risen to her chest, and the current fought her at every turn. Her hands trembled as she reached out, desperate to pull the puppy to safety. But just as she made contact, a violent surge of water struck from behind, knocking her off balance. She stumbled, her body jerking back as the puppy was carried away by the force of the flood. Her heart dropped. She couldn't let it go. With frantic urgency, Anna fought to regain her footing, but the tunnel was now more treacherous than ever. The water pulled her forward with a terrifying strength. She reached out again, but the current was too strong, and the puppy was dragged further into the darkness. She had to move faster. The clock was ticking. Every moment she hesitated brought the puppy closer to being lost forever. In a moment of sheer panic, Anna's mind raced. She could feel the weight of the water pulling her under, dragging her into the darkness. But she couldn't give up. Not now. She pushed through the panic, her hands desperately grabbing at whatever she could find in the darkness. Rocks, roots, anything to steady herself. She caught a glimpse of the puppy, its head barely above water, fighting against the current. It was weak. So weak. Anna's heart pounded as she realized just how dire the situation had become. If she didn't act now, the puppy wouldn't survive. She gritted her teeth and moved forward, ignoring the ache in her body, the coldness in her bones. The tunnel felt smaller, tighter. She knew time was running out. The pressure was building. And then in the distance, she heard the unmistakable sound of rocks shifting. The tunnel was collapsing. The tunnel groaned, and Anna's heart skipped a beat. The noise was deafening, as if the very earth was protesting her presence. Panic surged again. She had to get out, now. Anna looked frantically around for an escape, but the tunnel seemed to be closing in on her. The walls were shifting, rocks falling around her. Her pulse quickened as the water began to rise faster. Every instinct told her to flee, but the puppy was still out there just ahead, struggling in the rushing water. She couldn't leave it. She wouldn't. But the tunnel was becoming more dangerous by the second. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she pushed forward, the very ground beneath her trembling. She had no time left. With the collapse imminent, she had to make a decision: leave the tunnel and save herself, or continue the desperate fight to save the puppy. In the chaos, something unexpected happened. Just as Anna was about to give in to the overwhelming fear, a sudden shout echoed through the tunnel. Someone was outside, yelling for help. She could barely make out the voice, but it was enough to trigger a wave of relief. A rescue team was here. But were they in time? The collapse continued, and Anna could feel the tunnel groaning under the pressure. She couldn't risk being trapped. "Help! Over here!" she shouted, her voice hoarse from the effort. The rocks above her shifted, but she knew she had to move. She couldn't wait any longer. The water was nearly up to her neck now, and with one final push, she grabbed the puppy again, holding it tightly against her chest. The rescue team was on the way, but would they reach her in time? The sound of a rescue team's voice grew louder, and for the briefest moment, Anna felt a sense of hope. But just as she thought help was near, a horrifying realization hit her. The tunnel was too unstable. She could hear the team yelling in panic from the other side, but the narrow passage was becoming a deadly trap. Every second felt like an eternity. She couldn't waste another moment. The current threatened to drag them both under as the water surged violently. With a swift final movement, Anna braced herself against the wall, using every ounce of strength to pull the puppy toward her chest. The tunnel was collapsing more quickly now, and her escape was slipping away. She screamed for help again, but the walls seemed to close in around her. The race against time had turned into a desperate fight for survival. The crushing weight of the tunnel seemed endless, and Anna felt the strain of her body giving way to exhaustion. Her legs were shaking, her arms trembling with the effort of keeping the puppy close as the water crept higher. Her chest tightened with each breath as the walls of the tunnel closed in, both literally and figuratively. Her heart pounded in her ears, but just as she thought the end was near, she heard something. Voices. Distant, faint, but unmistakably human. Relief surged through her as she realized the rescue team had arrived. But the moment was short-lived. The floodwaters surged again, pushing Anna further into the collapsing tunnel. She barely had time to process the hope blooming in her chest when a figure appeared at the edge of the water, their hand outstretched toward her. "Grab my hand," the figure shouted, urgency in their voice. Anna didn't hesitate. With her last burst of strength, she lunged toward the helping hand, holding on to the puppy with all her might. Anna's fingers brushed against the rescuer's hand, but for a terrifying moment, the current tugged her back and she felt herself slipping. Her heart raced as the water surged higher. Figure, a man she didn't recognize, grabbed her arm just in time, pulling her forward with a strength she hadn't expected. His grip was firm, unyielding, and as he hauled her towards safety, he shouted to his team, "Get the rope!" The team sprang into action, tossing a heavy rope toward her. Anna clutched the rope tightly, her heart in her throat, and with the help of the rescuer, she managed to pull herself, the puppy, and the rope toward the tunnel's entrance. As the water sloshed around them, the rescue team worked in perfect synchrony, pulling them out of danger with each passing second. Anna's body trembled from the effort, but she didn't care. She was almost free. The sense of relief was overwhelming. With a final collective effort, Anna and the puppy were pulled from the tunnel, the floodwaters quickly subsiding as she was hoisted up onto solid ground. The rescuers surrounded her, ensuring she was stable, but her eyes remained fixed on the puppy, still in her arms. She felt its tiny body shivering, and a pang of guilt washed over her. She hadn't saved it in time, had she? But the puppy's eyes met hers, and for a split second, she saw something there. Trust. It was alive. It was safe. For the first time in what felt like forever, Anna allowed herself to exhale, her breath shaking. "You did it," one of the rescuers said, his voice gruff but warm. Anna nodded, her body still in shock, and glanced around at the team. They had saved her life, but it was the puppy who had saved her spirit. She looked down at the little creature in her arms and whispered, "We're safe now." The team helped Anna to her feet, their voices calm but filled with concern. "Are you all right?" one rescuer asked, guiding her away from the tunnel's entrance. Anna nodded, though she didn't feel all right. Not yet. Her limbs were weak, her body exhausted, but there was a strange peace in the air now. The chaos of the tunnel had finally ended. The sound of rushing water faded as they walked away from the danger. The puppy, still in her arms, snuggled closer to her chest, as though it too was finally aware it was safe. Anna looked up at the sky, noticing the gray clouds had parted slightly, letting rays of light peek through. The storm wasn't over, but they had survived. She still had to figure out what would come next. But for now, all she could think of was how lucky they both were to be alive. And for the first time since the flood began, she allowed herself a small, exhausted smile. As the rescue team led Anna away from the danger, the weight of what she had just gone through began to settle in. Her body was sore, her clothes soaked through, but there was a sense of relief in the air. She looked down at the puppy, its fur matted and wet, but its eyes were calm now. It was safe. And so was she. The team found a nearby shelter to rest. And as they settled in, Anna found a quiet corner to sit with the puppy. It nestled into her arms, curling up for warmth, and for a brief moment everything felt right again. Anna whispered softly to the little creature, "I'm sorry I couldn't save you sooner, but you're safe now. We're going to be okay." She let out a slow, relieved sigh, and in that moment she knew that no matter what came next, this journey was one they would face together. The shelter, though a temporary haven, couldn't erase the urgency that lingered in Anna's chest. The floodwaters were still rising in the area, and Anna knew they couldn't stay here forever. The rescuers had assured her they were setting up evacuation routes, but there was still an underlying tension. The rain had begun to fall again, heavy and relentless. Anna looked at the puppy in her arms, its small body nestled against her. She'd promised to keep it safe, and now she felt a responsibility to both of them. As the minutes stretched into hours, the weight of what had happened settled on her. She had faced a terrible ordeal, and yet she still had a long way to go. The journey wasn't over. She wasn't sure how long the floodwaters would last, but as she looked out at the rain-soaked landscape, she knew they'd need to escape again. She couldn't afford to let her guard down. Not yet. Just as Anna began to think the storm had passed, a sudden violent gust of wind slammed against the shelter. The wooden walls creaked, and Anna jumped to her feet, the puppy still in her arms. The floodwaters were rising faster than she had anticipated, and now the shelter seemed to be in danger. The rescuers who had been trying to fortify the area scrambled to check the water levels and reinforce the structure. "We need to move now," one of them shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Anna's heart raced as she heard the urgency in his voice. She quickly gathered her things, not waiting for further instructions. She didn't need them. The feeling of impending danger had been gnawing at her, and now it was real. She turned to the puppy, speaking in soothing tones. "It's time to go. Hold on tight." With one last look at the shelter, Anna followed the rescue team outside, ready for the next phase of their escape. The floodwaters outside the shelter had swollen into a raging torrent, and the path to safety was anything but clear. As Anna stepped into the water, the coldness hit her like a shock, but she didn't hesitate. The rescue team had set up a lifeline, a rope tied to a sturdy post. But even with that, the force of the current made every step a fight. The puppy trembled in her arms, its tiny body soaked through, but Anna kept moving, determined to reach higher ground. She could feel the weight of the water against her legs, dragging at her with every step. Each footfall was a battle, but she pushed forward. The rescuers had already formed a chain ahead, pulling each other towards safety. Anna glanced around and saw that the water level was still rising. If they didn't make it soon, they would be trapped again. The urgency of the moment was clear. They couldn't waste any time. Every step Anna took felt like it might be her last. The water was now up to her chest, and she could feel the current pulling at her with fierce determination. Behind her, the rescue team moved steadily, but Anna could sense they were running out of time. The rain showed no signs of letting up, and the sky was darkening again. Her heart pounded as she struggled to stay upright, but the puppy's presence kept her focused. She could feel its small body trembling, but it held on tightly. Anna reached out for the next hand in the chain, pulling herself toward it with all her strength. "We're almost there," a voice shouted from ahead. Anna could barely make out the shapes of the rescue team through the rain, but their resolve was unmistakable. The escape wasn't over yet, but Anna knew they were close. The final stretch was ahead. She just had to hold on a little longer. The last leg of their journey felt like an eternity. The escape route they had taken was narrow, but it was a lifeline. With every step forward, Anna felt the water receding, the danger of being trapped slipping further away. The rescuers' strength and determination were palpable as they moved together, pulling each other toward dry land. As Anna finally reached the final stretch, the water level began to lower, and she felt the solid ground beneath her feet once more. She stumbled, exhausted, but felt the steady support of the rescuers behind her. She could hardly believe it. They were safe. The storm still raged, but the immediate danger had passed. As the rescuers guided Anna and the puppy to higher ground, Anna looked down at the small creature in her arms, feeling a surge of gratitude. They had made it. Together, they had survived. Anna collapsed onto the soft, dry ground, the weight of everything pressing down on her. Her body ached, each muscle sore from the struggle, and her heart was still racing. The puppy, though drenched and cold, nestled into her arms, its tiny body a comfort that anchored her in the chaos. The rescuers around her moved quickly, securing their supplies, checking their radios for updates, but Anna was lost in the stillness of the moment. She looked down at the puppy, its eyes heavy with exhaustion, but filled with a quiet trust. Her hand gently brushed through its wet fur, and she whispered softly, "We made it. You're safe now." The rain had stopped for the moment, and though the sky remained overcast, there was a calmness in the air that felt almost surreal after the storm. Anna felt as if she were waking from a nightmare, her breath steadying. The danger had passed, but she knew that the road to recovery was just beginning. For now, though, all she could focus on was the warmth of the puppy in her arms, and the fact that they had both made it out alive. As Anna sat there, the sound of the storm slowly fading, she reflected on everything that had happened. It felt as though she had been trapped in the tunnel for hours, battling the rising waters, trying to keep the puppy alive. The memory of the chaos seemed distant now, as though it had happened to someone else. But the relief she felt in her chest was real, tangible, and she clung to it like a lifeline. She looked around at the other survivors. Some were exhausted, others were tending to their own wounds, but it was the puppy that had brought her through it all. Its survival had been the goal, but in saving it, Anna had also found something in herself she hadn't known existed, a strength she didn't think she had. The puppy's warm body against her chest was a reminder of that strength. Despite everything, they had made it. The quiet realization of that truth filled her heart. They were safe now. As the minutes passed, Anna's thoughts began to clear. She realized that while the storm had passed, the aftermath was just beginning. The water levels were still high, and the flood's damage was widespread. But for the first time, she felt a sense of hope that the nightmare of the tunnel was over, and they had made it to safety. The rescue team was planning the next steps, preparing to take the survivors to a safe shelter. But Anna couldn't help but feel the weight of the experience. The tunnel, the water, the fight for survival, it would all stay with her. But there was something else now, something that had been born from the struggle. A bond, a connection. The puppy, once a helpless creature in the flood, was now her companion, and she would never forget what they had endured together. She looked down at it, its tiny body curled against her, and felt a deep, overwhelming sense of gratitude. No matter what happened next, she knew they had each other. The team began to mobilize, guiding the survivors toward a nearby shelter. Anna was still holding the puppy, her grip gentle but firm. She hadn't let go since the moment she had pulled it from the floodwaters, and she wasn't about to now. The shelter was only a short distance away, but Anna moved slowly, savoring the last few moments of peace before the storm's aftermath set in. The air felt different now, cleaner, fresher, though the remnants of the storm still clung to everything. As they walked, the puppy lifted its head, its ears perked up at the sounds around them. Anna smiled softly, her heart swelling with love for the little creature. It had survived the worst of it, and now it was walking into a new life. "You made it," Anna whispered. "We both made it." The walk to the shelter felt like a long one, but each step was filled with relief. She couldn't wait to rest, to know they were both safe. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to feel at peace. When they reached the shelter, Anna found a small, quiet corner where she could sit and catch her breath. She placed the puppy down beside her, watching as it curled up on a soft blanket. The other survivors were gathered around, talking to each other. But Anna remained silent, reflecting on the ordeal. Storm had changed everything, her life, the puppy's life, but it had also given her something she hadn't expected, a sense of purpose. The fight to survive, the struggle to save the puppy had revealed a strength in her that she never knew she had. As she sat there, the exhaustion beginning to take its toll, she felt a peace that came from knowing she had done everything she could. The puppy stirred beside her and Anna gently stroked its fur, a soft smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. They were safe now, and that was all that mattered. The morning after the storm was clear, but Anna still felt a weight in her chest, the events of the past few days playing out in her mind like a film. The sound of rushing water, the smell of rain, and the frantic fight to save the puppy, they all felt so vivid, so raw. But now, as she sat outside the shelter, looking out at the horizon, there was something else. Peace. The flood had passed, but something had shifted within her. The world around her was quiet, and for the first time since it had all begun, she allowed herself to feel the fullness of that silence. She looked down at the puppy, who had now grown stronger, its fur beginning to dry in the soft sunlight. The bond between them had formed in the darkest of circumstances, and Anna knew, without a doubt, that this was just the beginning of something new. She had fought for this little life, and in doing so, she had discovered something important within herself. As Anna sat there, she felt the weight of the last few days begin to settle into something more manageable. Constant pressure, the urgency, the fear, they were still there, but they no longer dominated her every thought. She realized now that the storm had not only forced her to face the elements, but also herself. In the moment of crisis, when everything seemed lost, she had found a strength she didn't know she had. She had fought for the puppy, for their survival, and in doing so, she had uncovered a deep well of resilience. She had saved a life, and in the process saved her own. The puppy, now awake and alert, licked her hand, as if sensing her shift in mood. Anna smiled softly, rubbing the little creature's head. "You're my new beginning," she whispered. The words felt right. They had both been through so much, but they had come through stronger together. The rescue team had been busy with their preparations, but Anna couldn't shake the feeling that her journey with the puppy had only just begun. The floodwaters were receding, but the path ahead was still uncertain. With the danger behind them, the team began to plan their evacuation, but Anna found herself lingering behind, not quite ready to leave. She glanced over at the puppy, its tail wagging slightly, as if sensing her hesitation. Anna took a deep breath and looked around one last time, the shelter, the trees, the quiet after the storm. She knew that whatever came next, she would face it with the same determination that had carried her through the flood. This wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about living. Anna felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the life she had fought for, and a new resolve to live each day with purpose, no longer weighed down by the past. As Anna and the puppy walked toward the rescue team, she paused for a moment to take one last look at the area they had just survived. It wasn't just a place. It was a reminder of everything they had been through. The storm had come and gone, leaving destruction in its wake, but it had also forged something indestructible between them, a bond. Anna could feel the weight of that bond in every step, every breath. She turned to the puppy and whispered, "We made it together." She was ready for what came next, not because the journey ahead was clear, but because she had found her own strength and resilience. It was no longer about surviving. It was about embracing the future, even in the face of uncertainty. As they rejoined the team, Anna knew that life would never be the same, but she was no longer afraid of what lay ahead. They were in this together, and that was enough. As the day wore on, Anna and the puppy followed the rescue team to the evacuation point. The journey was slow, but each step felt lighter. With every mile they traveled, Anna felt the heavy weight of the storm, and the floodwaters begin to slip away, replaced by the steady rhythmic beat of a new life unfolding. She glanced down at the puppy, now walking alongside her, its small paws patting lightly against the ground. She couldn't help but smile at the thought that this little creature, so fragile yet so resilient, had been her anchor through the darkest moments of her life. They had faced the impossible together. And now, as they walked side by side, Anna knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it with courage. They had survived the storm. Now it was time to live.